gone to the grocery store and bought like, you know, a head of broccoli or something and just thought to yourself, I can't grow one this big. What is going on? What kind of sorcery are they doing? Well, I've kind of been paying attention to that for the past few years, and I've compiled the techniques that we should do so we can basically match grocery store produce and even surpass it. Thankfully, we dodged the tropical storm and the Category 5 Hurricane Umberto that just went by. We've gotten some heavy rain from it, so my garden is a little beat down right now, but it was much needed rain and I'm thankful for it. So it's cloudy and it's windy. Just gonna have to deal with the wind noise. I'm gonna try and keep it out of there. But so as we go through the season here, it's gonna be really interesting to see, because I know that I just sat here and said like I've figured it out, and I have figured it out for what I normally do in the spring. So the fall is the same, but I'm kind of working uphill battle here, and I understand that and it's cool. But this spring, and I said this in a previous video, which kind of triggered me to want to talk about this. I harvested broccoli that surpassed the grocery store. And I've been thinking about that for the past couple months, thinking, well, how did I do that? Like, and can I do it again? So, you know, the coming seasons will be really important to do it, because I was plagued for many years with just subpar harvest. And even when it comes down to the lettuce, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, variety does matter to an extent, but it shouldn't make that much of a difference to where it's like, it's nothing even close to what you're getting at the grocery store, you know? Same with the broccoli. Obviously, we just talked about that. Brussels sprouts, you name it. Anything out here, especially this time of year, like these cabbages, a small cabbage, I mean, you know, there's no reason that we should be harvesting small cabbages unless we're growing a variety for small cabbages. So what are these techniques? Well, basically, I think first and foremost that gardeners are overcomplicating everything in their garden as a whole. I think we focus on the minute changes in the garden, the little small things in the garden that don't make a huge difference, but we feel like they do. So we focus on all these things because we're thinking, well, hey, if the farms can do it, then we can do better. Well, I don't know if we can. I think, you know, as far as what they do, let's look at the things that the farmers do to get that produce we want. And we're going to stick for this conversation to an organic farm. So the genetically modified token is out of it. Don't even mention it. If you've mentioned it, I know you didn't pay attention or you didn't watch the video, and you're gonna get ignored. So the first thing that I think is way done much more in a farm is fertilizing. Fertilizing is really important. That is the one thing that changed everything here. And I know I say it a lot, but it's so important because it fuels that growth. That big head of broccoli I told you about that I got, all the big heads of broccoli, it all came because I was feeding very heavy with the right nutrients at the right times. So it's really important that we understand it's timing, it's the composition of the fertilizer. It's, you know, are you using organic, slow release? Are you using fast acting? What are you doing? Because if we go on to this, and each one of these little topics is going to kind of cross over into each other a little bit. But if we look at it and we say, hey, well, we put compost in our garden and that is what we use for fertilizer. Well, the big farms aren't really adding, you know, 9,000 metric tons of, I don't even know how much compost it would take. They are doing in-ground composting and stuff like that, you know, mulching, stuff like that, especially at the end of the season, but they're not actively adding in a lot of compost back into the soil. So is compost really what it's cracked up to be? I think it's great. I don't think it's a feeding method. And I feel like if you've ever questioned how big your produce is that you're getting, this is the first place to look, is at your fertilization. Recently did a video about my fertilization for winter, and that actually hasn't released yet, so I have no idea what the response will be to it. But if you think about it, it's, you know, there's a lot of fertilizer that went in here, and we did it. We got rain, everything went through, And I see no ill effects from any of the fertilizer I put in, especially that high nitrogen fertilizer we put. I'm not seeing any ill effects from it, which is very good. Just the only ill effects we see is from the heavy rains from the storm. We all know that soil is so important, and soil health is really important. So we add compost for soil health as well, soil composition, all that good stuff. So what do we do to improve our soil? Let's say that we're not going to put any more compost in whatsoever. Just stop. Right now, no more compost. What would we do to improve our soil? One thing they do is they till the crops back into the soil a lot of times, and so that will help build. Sometimes at the end of the season, they will come back and they will mulch stuff out or whatever. You know, if you're looking at like wheat and grains and stuff, they will, you know, when it's separated in the harvester, it'll get sprayed back out in the field. So all of that is really good. It will break back down into the soil, but you're talking hundreds of acres sometimes of land, which is just a lot of land. So what we do is we do some, let's see if we've got, yeah. So this grass here is our cover crop for the winter. So you can see it's just starting to come up, which is very good. And it is a winter ryegrass. So that is going to build our soil. Cover crops, cover crops, cover crops. Get down to it, start looking at them, start learning them, because cover crops are really good for a number of reasons. One, typically they're already doing and adding or taking out something that you strategically want to have removed or added into your soil. And two, when you're done with them, a lot of times you till them back in, which makes them a living mulch type situation, a green mulch, and then they break down and go back into the beds or the garden or whatever. So use that to your advantage and build your soil, and I think more naturally. You know what I mean? Like, natural is really where it's at. And it's not, you know, compost is absolutely natural, but the process of putting it in the garden, laying those crops down and having them break down in there absolutely will help. And it's just all about the timing. So if you need to have a bed ready for spring and you want to chop and drop something, you just do it a little bit ahead of time before you plant, and it'll all break down and it'll add to your soil dramatically. And some things you'll be surprised. So I use buckwheat in the summer, and I've used winter ryegrass before. I liked it, so I went back to it. It's been a couple years. So we're gonna start working that into the mix. What else do we do to get that perfect grocery store harvest? Well, one thing that the big farms do is they manage their pests, right? And that's something that's really big. You can see we've done a pretty decent job this year. We've actually are just starting to get an outbreak. I know you look at these plants like just starting hell, but we've had a bunch of rain, so we could not treat. You're gonna spray something on your crops, which I use an organic treatment. If you spray something on your crops and then it rains within like 24 hours afterwards, you risk the chance of it washing off and not being effective. So just to save, you know, the time, the money, the effort, all that stuff, we waited. It's not the end of the world, but we really need to treat these, because I'm seeing it spread to another plant, and then it'll just exponentially go. And it'll go not from just this one bed, but to multiple beds, because they're all susceptible to the same pest. So be on some kind of regimen for that. So what does that look like? Does that mean you have to spray? Well, it doesn't mean you have to, but it really makes it a hell of a lot easier, and it works really good. So just think about that. But the problem is this leaf isn't really going to do much for the plant. You know, this leaf will be okay, but you go through and all the really damaged leaves, they don't really do anything for the plant, so they're weakened down. And that's why, and I don't agree with this method at all, but a lot of farmers will do like a scheduled treatment, you know, because it's inevitable. You're going to get a pest. So they will schedule it out and do it whether it needs it or not. Just say we had a Brussels sprout farm. I got 28 Brussels sprouts here, roughly. No, 21 Brussels sprouts. That's nothing. Imagine having tens of thousands of Brussels sprout plants. You have no idea what the pest issue is in there, so you're going to spray on it no matter what. But what that does is that keeps the pressure down from the pests and lets those plants continue to grow Always. So what would I do, or what do I do when I suggest you do? Just be very vigilant and take advantage of the fact that you have a small garden and you can notice the pests and treat it. Do it like you're supposed to do it and be on top of it as soon as you can. And you're going to be rewarded with a lot better produce, a lot larger and more plump. Water. Everything's about water. Water is the source of life. It moves the nutrients, it's filling the cells, all that stuff. And I am a firm believer that as a whole, gardeners are not the best waterers. We underwater our plants. Each a week is what they say for almost 90% of plants. And I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing that works. I've measured it, I've done all the tests, and what's worked for me is having very deep waterings multiple times a week in the summer. You know, the reason why I say that is because if you ever go by and the farms are watering and they water heavy and deep, and some stuff like corn is really the value of the corn, the plumpness of the kernels relies on a number of things, but one of them is the amount of water that they get. So try and figure out a way to water a little bit more maybe. You know, it's no question, no doubt in my mind that every time it rains, the garden is always happier. And we just got 3 inches of rain, and I'm gonna delay my timers by 1 day and then just keep it going, because these are all really water hungry crops that need to grow. And this will help transport all of those nutrients we put in instead of letting it sit stagnant in the soil. So water is another thing that I would really focus on. I've got a few farms by my house, and we noticed every year they rotate their crops and they never grow the same crop at the same time or in the same plot at same next year after year after year. They're always changing it, right? And they rotate between corn and soybeans, and then they'll let it sit fallow or something like that for a year. When I was a wee lad, it used to be tobacco. Used to grow a lot of tobacco in this area, but not anymore, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you know, it did hurt the economy a lot. But rotating it around really helps for a number of reasons. It helps with the nutrition, it helps with the pest pressure, it helps with the disease, it helps with the water consumption. You know, corn is a heavy water user, soybeans is not really a heavy water user. So, and the reason why I use those two is because, like, typically speaking, that's like in my area when we ride around, that's what we see. Now, I know there's obviously other farms in other areas. I've never been to like a broccoli farm. I think that'd be really cool to go see. I've seen watermelon and pumpkin farms, and I saw a winter squash farm one time that was really cool. But, you know, it's just, they rotate their crops. So for instance, that pumpkin farm one year, they may grow pumpkins, and then the next year, they either, you know, they'll have multiple beds. I got a thing stuck to me. They'll have multiple plots, not beds. We have to think big, right? And then they'll let one sit for a year, they'll grow for a year, or they'll just switch from one crop to the other. You know, they'd put a watermelon in one year, and then the next year, maybe they'd put, I don't know, tomatoes or something, you know, just switch it up completely. And that way you're managing pests, disease, water pressure, all that stuff. So it's kind of weird if you think about it, but those are like the 4 or 5 things, I don't know, I lost count, 4 or 5 things that, you know, I see are the recipe to success. It's not necessarily adding micronutrients, and which I think helps, don't get me wrong, but it's not necessarily all those little itty bitty things we do. It's these big tasks that we undertake. Now, soil tests will help you a lot with this and help you determine what you need to do, what you need to add to your garden, take away from your garden, all that stuff. So use all of that to your advantage, but at the same time, just be aware when you put all of your efforts into something that's in the grand scheme of things so minuscule that it just, you know, it just doesn't make sense to continue doing it for the garden. I can't think of anything that would makes me feel better than knowing that if I wanted to match the produce that comes from a farm that I get at the grocery store, then this is something, these are the 5 things. It's only 5. And there's not, if you notice, the only thing that we mention products for really would be fertilizer, pest control, and then also seeds for the cover crops. That's it.